Hi everybody, Stanley013 here again. I want to talk briefly of Internet of Everything and how that relates to 5G. There's been several YouTube clips and postings about how 5G is detrimental to the health, even though there's no indication of that from real scientists or experts. And there's been talk about how 5G means that everything is connected. That's absolutely not true. Internet of Everything is something that's been talked about for many years. Really has nothing to do with 5G. Um, so let's cover it a little bit here. So Internet of Everything was first discussed at least 20 years ago. I was still at Nortel at the time when Internet of Everything started being talked about. Part of the logic behind that is that everything now has a computer in it, or just about. If you bought a light dimmer in the last 10 years or so, um, it more than likely has a computer in it. Um, if you bought a fridge in the last 10 years, more than likely it has a computer in it. If you bought a microwave, computer. A dishwasher, computer. Um, television, computer. So nearly everything has at least one computer, sometimes multiple computers. And that trend has been around for several decades. The argument, 20 years or so ago was that since all these things have computers in them, why can't they talk to each other? So that's sort of where the Internet of Everything comes from. Now, some people like having the Internet on their fridge, and they can, have their fridge automatically update their grocery list. They can view the web on the screen on their TV, on their fridge sometimes. Same thing with the microwave. The microwave can tell you when it's done. You can sometimes have the screen on your microwave where you can watch videos while you're waiting for your popcorn to pop. Um, Dishwashers can notify you when they're done their cycle. Washing machines, dryers, the same thing. So the Internet of Everything really has nothing to do with 5G. People are sort of adopting that or not based on personal preference to some extent. Uh, I mean, as I said, if you buy a light dimmer, it more than likely has a computer in there. Whether or not you can access the computer to do anything useful depends on the brand and style you buy. Um, Philips has a popular brand, Hue, I think it is, and they license that technology to other companies. Um, so other companies may be making devices that work under the Hue standard, but they're not the only standard. There's a few other light dimmers around that have a standard that allow you to communicate. The problem is it's not a generic standard, if you like. It is the Philips. Hue is Philips. There may be some other ones, but if you're using the name brand light dimmer switch, you need the name brand software to control that light dimmer switch if you want to have remote access. The talk 20 years or so ago was that at some point all these devices should have somewhat standard commands so that you can have your light control software from your favorite vendor, and you can buy light dimmers from any company you want and they would work. So that is sort of the utopia of Internet of Everything. It's a long ways away yet. 5G does nothing to bring it closer. What really would be required to get the Internet of Everything to really take off would be standardization among the companies, agreement among the companies to work together, to actually use the standard, to actually cooperate together and use the same interface more or less so that you can use software from one company with hardware from another. That is the crux of that problem. As you see, the problem, or if you want to call it that way, has nothing to do with 5G. Uh, the argument is that 5G facilitates the Internet of Everything in this, that it makes internet connection more readily available to everybody. So that in North America, if you have a Wi-Fi capable fridge, you more than likely have your Wi-Fi connected to your network, and your fridge can connect to your network through the Wi-Fi. If you are in Cuba, probably not the same option. Your Wi-Fi enabled fridge um, is unlikely to find a Wi-Fi signal to connect to, and if it does, that Wi-Fi signal is not doing very much. So 5G would increase the number of locations where devices with internet capability would actually be able to connect to the internet. It does not pair in any other way. There is talk that like tracking devices would have a cell phone in them, which they sometimes do nowadays. So tracking devices are roughly the size of a small cell phone, because that's really what they are, a small cell phone. And they can't really get that much smaller if you want to be able to track them. They have to be able to communicate to the cell towers. 5G, in theory, has more antennas, and therefore possibly a smaller cell phone would be large enough to communicate with the more frequent cell towers. That is not, nobody's really talking about 5G phones being smaller, but in theory it would be possible. Nonetheless, tracking devices are, if they are cellular enabled, are the size of a small cell phone, because that's what they are. There are other things that I've sometimes talked about as being tracking devices, RFID chips. They have a range of 50 feet maximum in ideal circumstances. In reality, the range is more like 5 feet, and really most applications it's a few inches. So RFID chips is what you see people implanting in their hands to open doors, have access to vending machines in some places, stuff like that. That is not a tracking chip. That is an RFID chip. It will not track the person. It cannot track the person. It has to be read from an RFID reader, and the range is very small, so the person basically has to want to be scanned for it to work. And that's not entirely true. I mean, you could within 5 feet scan the person, even if they didn't want to, but it's, if they didn't want to be scanned, it would be relatively easy to avoid any points where they could be scanned. So RFID is by no means a tracking chip. RFID chips are about the size of a grain of rice at best. Better ones, the ones coming out might be a small grain of rice. The more common ones are a large grain of rice. So the fears that somebody is going to inject a tracking device into you without you noticing is extremely unlikely. I know if somebody injected a grain of rice in me, I would notice, unless I was put under before they injected it. But even then, you might notice a grain of rice under your skin somewhere. So the risk, the fear, the absurdity of being concerned about 5G enabling tracking, about 5G somehow being linked to a tracking device that they would inject into us is completely ridiculous and unfounded. Internet of Everything, as I said, is not related to 5G. There are some benefits and there are some downfalls with Internet of Everything. The Internet of Everything on devices tends to be Wi-Fi. You also have Bluetooth. Bluetooth is sort of a step between Wi-Fi and RFID. And you also have a lot of proprietary standards, as I said, with Hue, for example, from Philips for light control. So Internet of Everything does not mean 5G, and 5G does not mean Internet of Everything. 5G does not make Internet of Everything any more common. It's the purchasers that will make the Internet of Everything more common. If people tend to buy fridges with web-enabled features, more and more fridges will have web-enabled features. I bought a new washer and dryer last year, and they have internet-enabled capabilities. I didn't really realize that when I bought them. I realized that after. I don't really care for the feature. I haven't really enabled it. Don't use it. But it is there, and some people probably use it. The more people use it, the more people like it, the more it will be in future devices. That's it. It has nothing to do with 5G. So again, Internet of Everything, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. It really has nothing to do with 5G. Thank you. Have a good day.